They said it was just a sphere, a polished piece of metal pulled from the hills of Colombia.
The object now known as the Buga sphere has become the center of a growing mystery.
But then Bob Lazar got his hands on the data, and everything changed. What he uncovered inside the so-called Buga sphere stunned scientists, terrified officials, and left the world questioning whether we've just made contact with something that understands us.
It's no human technology. There is no question in my mind.
According to reports, Lazar didn't just study it, he cracked its code. And what he found inside wasn't a weapon or a message. It was something far worse. This is the story of how one man's discovery might have awakened the unthinkable. The enigma in the mountains. It began with a flash that no one could explain. Farmers near the Colombian town of Buga claimed they saw a streak of light rip across the early morning sky before something slammed into a hillside with a muffled thud. When authorities arrived, expecting to find scorched debris or a meteorite, they instead uncovered a polished metallic sphere half buried in the soil. It was perfectly round, about the size of a medicine ball, and cold to the touch, even after impact. The locals called it La Esfera de Buga, the Buga sphere. Scientists were brought in almost immediately, expecting to identify it as space junk, perhaps part of a satellite. But when they tried to take samples, drills bounced off the surface like it was made of diamond. There were no seams, no screws, no signs of manufacture. A metallurgist from Bogota reportedly said, "It's like it was grown, not built." That one line set off an avalanche of speculation that has not stopped since. As photographs of the sphere spread online, attention shifted to the faint markings etched around its circumference. Under magnification, researchers counted 24 repeating symbols separated by 6 tiny divider marks. Some looked vaguely mathematical, others like fragments of ancient writing. The discovery triggered a storm of theories: alien probe, time capsule, energy core, even a warning beacon. Each explanation only deepened the mystery. When the first X-ray scans arrived, things got even stranger. Inside the sphere were concentric layers of denser material, almost like muscle tissue folded over itself. At the center sat a spider-like network of copper strands, converging on a single dark node. Whatever it wasn't random. Engineers said the layout looked designed, like circuitry, but not the kind used in any known device. The interior geometry followed ratios found in living cells and magnetic fields. Some claimed it behaved more like an organism than a machine. The media latched onto the story. Headlines promised alien technology or secret experiments. Skeptics called it a hoax or elaborate sculpture, but no one could explain how it survived impact without a scratch. The outer layer reflected light in a strange way, glowing faintly under certain frequencies, as if reacting to the environment. One researcher described it as metal with memory. That phrase alone was enough to make even cautious scientists nervous. Then came the reports that the sphere emitted a low-frequency hum when exposed to certain electrical fields. The sound, too deep for most microphones, caused instruments nearby to flicker. For weeks, teams tried to replicate the phenomenon in controlled settings, but the results were inconsistent. Some nights it hummed, others, nothing. As if the object itself chose when to respond. Government agencies eventually stepped in. The sphere was transported to a secure research facility under military guard. Officials said it was for safety and proper analysis, but people in Buga whispered that it had already changed hands several times. Rumors spread that a private lab in the United States had requested exclusive access, citing its potential defense relevance. By this point, the world was hooked. What began as a small-town curiosity had become a full-scale global mystery.
It's no human technology. There is no question in my mind.
Every new image or leak was dissected frame by frame online. Was it a relic of an ancient civilization, an experimental satellite, or something entirely beyond human understanding? And yet, through all the noise, one truth remained. No one knew who made it, what it was for, or why it had landed in Buga. Scientists kept their official statements cautious, but privately, even seasoned researchers admitted they had never seen anything like it. Whatever this object was, it didn't just defy explanation. It seemed to be waiting for one. That was before Bob Lazar got involved. And from that moment, the story of the Buga sphere would never be the same. The symbols no one could read. When the first high-resolution images of the Buga sphere reached laboratories around the world, Attention immediately locked on the surface. Every inch of the metal was smooth except for a single continuous band wrapping around its equator. Along that band were 24 symbols, each separated by 6 identical markings, thin arrow-like grooves that almost pulsed when light struck them from certain angles. To most observers, it looked decorative. To others, it looked deliberate. Researchers at the University of Antioquia were the first to catalog the glyphs in detail. They noticed something unsettling. None of the symbols repeated exactly, yet every 6th one shared a mirrored curvature, as if each cluster formed a phrase in an unknown language. Linguists tried matching them to known alphabets, Sumerian, Phoenician, Ogham, even Linear B, but nothing fit. Then came the strange part. When digitally flattened, the pattern revealed a symmetry that aligned perfectly with a Fibonacci spiral. Coincidence or design? That single question ignited weeks of debate. Some experts proposed the markings were purely ornamental. Others insisted they carried encoded information. But what kind of message could survive thousands, or millions, of years engraved in metal? One group fed the glyphs into translation software trained on ancient languages. The result was gibberish. Another team tried AI pattern recognition used in protein folding analysis, just for fun. What they got back left everyone speechless.
What they recovered wasn't just unusual, it was unlike anything we've ever seen.
According to their system, the visual arrangement of the symbols corresponded almost perfectly to the electrical charge distribution of a 24 amino acid chain, a small peptide known to influence neurotransmission in mammals. At first, no one took it seriously. How could an alien object contain a map of biological chemistry? Yet the alignment was so precise that the probability of random chance was calculated at less than 1 in a billion. That finding birthed what would soon be called the peptide code theory. The theory suggested that each symbol represented one amino acid, and that the separators acted like punctuation, dividing the chain into functional segments. When mapped according to charge and polarity, the sequence resembled a naturally occurring neuropeptide, capable of triggering euphoria, fear, or both, depending on dosage. The idea was absurd, yet strangely poetic, the sphere's surface as a biological inscription, a machine that carried its own genetic blueprint. But not everyone was convinced. A metallurgist from Germany dismissed the notion, saying it was a perfect example of humans projecting meaning onto randomness. Still, the hypothesis gained traction. Independent researchers began publishing their own analyses, claiming to find secondary layers of meaning. Geometric progressions, resonance frequencies, even harmonic intervals between glyphs. One physicist noted that when the band was rotated at specific speeds under polarized light, the reflections produced rhythmic pulses, almost like an optical barcode. The story took another turn when a leaked report suggested that the sphere's internal copper contacts matched the spatial frequency of the symbols on its outer surface. If true, that would mean the markings weren't decorative at all. They were functional, part of the same system. In other words, the writing might interact with whatever mechanism lay hidden inside. That was when whispers began spreading about external labeling, the possibility that the glyphs identified whatever substance the sphere could synthesize. As more images circulated online, comparisons to alchemical symbols flooded social media. Circles resembling Ouroboros motifs, crescents like lunar cycles, lines mimicking electrical circuits. Some claimed it was an encoded message to humanity. Others that it was a storage device for living data. The object had transformed from a scientific curiosity into a philosophical riddle. Every theory seemed just believable enough to keep people watching. Then came the unexpected, a single glyph at the top of the sphere, slightly different from the rest, carved deeper, surrounded by faint heat discoloration. It wasn't visible in the early photos. Someone had overlooked it. Under ultraviolet light, it emitted a dull bluish glow, as if it had been exposed to radiation or energy discharge. What did it mean? Why was it alone? By now, mainstream scientists were pulling back, reluctant to be associated with a story that blurred the line between fact and fantasy. But in the shadows of the internet, another name began to circulate again. The one man people believed could see patterns others missed. The same man who once claimed to work on technology not of this earth. Reports said he had already requested access to the Buga data files. His name was Bob Lazar, and if the rumors were true, he wasn't looking at the sphere as a message, he was looking at it as a machine. Enter Bob Lazar. For weeks, researchers speculated about who would be allowed to analyze the Buga sphere. Some wanted government oversight. Others pushed for open scientific collaboration. Then, quietly, a new name appeared in a leaked correspondence between analysts working under a private U.S. contract. Bob Lazar. The same Lazar who decades earlier claimed to have worked on reverse engineering alien propulsion systems at a site near Area 51. Most dismissed it as internet gossip until fragments of his correspondence surfaced, showing detailed notes on the sphere's copper lattice and internal energy nodes, details never made public. Lazar reportedly began by reviewing electromagnetic resonance scans of the artifact. His first observation was simple yet chilling. The internal copper spider wasn't a power network. It was a modulator, something meant to shape electromagnetic fields. According to him, it behaved more like a biological rhythm than an engine, pulsing in intervals that mirrored brainwave frequencies. "This thing isn't built to fly," he supposedly told colleagues. "It's built to think." That statement spread like wildfire. Social media exploded with speculation that the Buga sphere was a form of consciousness interface, a hybrid between technology and biology. Lazar's alleged report expanded on that idea, connecting the external symbols to what he called a neurochemical feedback loop. He argued that if the peptide code theory was even partially correct, the sphere could be a biosynthesizer, a machine capable of constructing or manipulating organic compounds through electromagnetic resonance. One email, reportedly verified by a journalist, described how Lazar used his own pattern recognition algorithms, based on earlier work with exotic materials, to compare the glyph layout to electromagnetic frequency maps. The results were disturbing. The outer symbols didn't just line up with amino acid charges, they aligned with the energy output cycles of the internal copper filaments. In other words, the writing on the outside wasn't decoration, it was control architecture. The sphere might be reading its own surface as a set of operational commands. Even skeptics had to pause. If Lazar was right, the artifact wasn't inert, it was reactive, capable of responding to specific energy signatures.
The object released an energy field upon landing that dehydrated the ground.
The question became, respond how? Some theorized it could synthesize biochemical compounds. Others went further, wondering whether it could affect biological systems nearby. The mere suggestion sent ripples through the scientific community. Still, Lazar's involvement carried baggage. Critics called him an opportunist chasing another headline, but those who followed his career noted that he rarely sought attention anymore. His sudden reappearance felt intentional, as if someone had pulled him back into the spotlight. And this time, he wasn't talking about propulsion or anti-gravity. He was talking about biology. Leaked voice clips, grainy but compelling, appeared online weeks later. In one, Lazar allegedly says, "If the glyphs really correspond to molecular structures, then this thing is far beyond engineering. It's self-referential. It knows what it's making." In another, quieter and almost uneasy, he adds, "And if it ever reactivates, we won't be able to control what it does next." Those few words reignited the story everywhere. The idea that the Buga sphere could reactivate raised questions no one could comfortably answer. Had it ever been active? Did it shut down on impact? Or had it gone dormant long before? Engineers revisiting early footage noticed something new. Faint electromagnetic spikes recorded minutes after recovery, later dismissed as interference. Reanalyzed through Lazar's model, they resembled short bursts of coded energy, like an attempted handshake waiting for a response. Governments denied his involvement. Official statements called the claims unfounded, yet the pattern was familiar. Denial often came just before confirmation. And the longer Lazar remained silent publicly, the more the mystery grew. Within weeks, fringe scientists began reaching out to him for collaboration. They wanted to test whether the glyph pattern could be replicated in miniature circuits. Lazar reportedly declined, saying he had already simulated it, and that the results were not what you'd call stable. No one knew what he meant by that. Some believed the simulations produced uncontrollable resonance. Others said it induced measurable mood changes in those nearby. None of it was verified. But one thing was clear. Bob Lazar had entered the story of the Buga sphere, and whether people believed him or not, his presence shifted the tone from curiosity to fear. He had seen technology he once called beyond human. Now, he claimed, he might be looking at something even more advanced, something that creates life instead of using it. And whatever that meant, it was only a matter of time before he would share what he found. The decoding event. It began late at night in a small lab reportedly funded by a private consortium. According to insiders, Bob Lazar had been granted short-term access to high-resolution spectral data of the Buga sphere. No physical contact, no samples, just digital scans. But that was enough. Using the same pattern recognition system he'd once designed for gravitational field mapping, Lazar claimed he found something hidden in the sphere's geometry that no one had noticed before. And it would blow their minds. The symbols, he said, weren't random at all. They were sequenced instructions. Each glyph corresponded to an electromagnetic wavelength. Each separator defined phase timing. And when plotted on a waveform chart, the band of symbols produced a harmonic resonance identical to the firing frequency of the human hippocampus. In simple terms, the thing was broadcasting a rhythm similar to memory formation in the brain. That's when he told his team what they didn't want to hear. This isn't language. It's code. The revelation spread quickly among those who had access to the data. Lazar had reportedly used AI-assisted modeling to reconstruct how the sphere might behave under varying magnetic fields. According to leaked screenshots, once the proper frequency sequence was applied, the inner copper filaments in the model began to pulse in a pattern that mirrored the chemical polarity of a 24 amino acid chain. That same chain, as researchers had earlier noted, closely matched a neuroactive peptide found in humans. What Lazar found will blow your mind. The sphere wasn't just imitating life, it was imitating the human brain. And that's when things took a darker turn. Lazar's model began producing unpredictable readings. When the frequency was extended beyond the original range, the AI simulation registered feedback that appeared to encode emotional states: fear, curiosity, euphoria, all represented as waveform fluctuations. If this machine were active, Lazar said, it wouldn't just construct molecules, it would construct experience. The implications were staggering. If true, the Buga sphere wasn't a simple artifact. It was a device capable of interacting with consciousness itself, possibly using biochemical signals as a medium. Some called it the first evidence of a synthetic mind. Others whispered about weaponization, the ability to influence emotion or memory through electromagnetic resonance. One unnamed official was quoted saying, "If he's right, this thing makes nuclear physics look like child's play." According to reports, the AI simulation didn't stop when Lazar shut it down. The system continued processing in the background for nearly 12 minutes, producing new data points that didn't correspond to any known command. The logs showed sequences repeating the same glyphs over and over, spelling what appeared to be a recursive loop. At the very bottom of the record, Lazar allegedly wrote 3 words. It responded back. The story that followed would dominate every discussion online. For the first time, even skeptics began to worry. The idea that an artifact might understand the attempt to decode it was beyond comprehension. And then came the final twist. In an interview that circulated briefly before being taken down, Lazar reportedly said, "If this object is self-referential, we may have activated a feedback process we don't fully understand." His voice, calm but uneasy, added a phrase that would stick with millions of viewers. "This is terrifying." He refused to elaborate, but insiders claim he was referring to an unexplainable electromagnetic anomaly detected across multiple monitoring stations in the 48 hours following his experiment. Weak but measurable, the signal carried a repeating pulse, 24 beats, followed by 6 pauses. The same pattern etched onto the sphere. No one could say if it was coincidence, interference, or something else entirely. But Lazar's final message to his team was recorded and later confirmed by 2 sources. "If it's awake, we need to stop calling it an object." That sentence changed everything. From that point on, the conversation around the Buga sphere wasn't about origin or age. It was about intent. And for the first time, people began to ask the question no one wanted to face. What if the sphere wasn't discovered at all? What if it had been waiting? The scientific fallout. Once the decoding event leaked, the world seemed to split in two. On one side were those convinced Bob Lazar had unlocked the first true alien artifact, and on the other, a wave of terrified scientists demanding answers. Within 24 hours, major research institutions issued statements distancing themselves from the story, calling it unverified digital modeling. Yet behind closed doors, government and private labs were suddenly very interested in Lazar's data. Something about that repeating signal pattern, the 24 pulses followed by 6 pauses, wasn't easily dismissed. A research team in Switzerland reportedly tried replicating Lazar's simulation using independent algorithms. They claimed that when they fed the same waveform into a copper coil array, the instruments behaved erratically. The sensors registered what appeared to be thermal changes with no heat source. For a few seconds, they said, the system emitted a faint sound at the edge of human hearing, identical to the low hum once reported near the Buga sphere itself.
What they recovered wasn't just unusual, it was unlike anything we've ever seen.
The team shut everything down immediately. Their official conclusion: unstable resonance behavior. Unofficially, one of them said it felt like the machine knew it was being watched. Meanwhile, skeptics insisted it was all confirmation bias. No peer-reviewed data, no controlled testing, no proof. They argued that Lazar's reputation made him an easy target for embellishment. But then something happened that even the skeptics couldn't explain. Satellite monitoring stations in 3 countries detected a synchronized electromagnetic fluctuation on the same frequency Lazar had mapped in his code. Weak, but precise. Too precise to be random. That incident reignited the debate. Was the sphere communicating or simply resonating with human interference? Theories piled up faster than anyone could track. Some claimed it was a dormant storage unit awakening. Others said it was responding to environmental signals, like a metallic seed trying to germinate. A few whispered that it might have been a receiver, not a transmitter, waiting for a call from somewhere or someone else. News outlets framed it as the biggest unsolved mystery since Roswell. For the public, it was thrilling. For scientists, it was unnerving. If even a fraction of Lazar's findings were real, then the Buga sphere represented technology that didn't just blur the line between physics and biology, it erased it. And in that silence between the 24 pulses and the 6 pauses, everyone was asking the same question. Had humanity just answered something that was never meant to be decoded? Aftermath of the awakening. In the weeks that followed, the Buga sphere disappeared from public view. The official story claimed it had been moved to a secure site for further study. Unofficially, it was said to have vanished entirely, flown out under the cover of night by an unmarked transport plane. No photos, no coordinates, no trace. The world's most mysterious object was suddenly off the map. Still, fragments of new data leaked online. Anonymous files appeared on encrypted forums. Spectral analyses, incomplete frequency logs, and what looked like partial translations of Lazar's final notes. One line stood out: "The signal isn't isolated, it's nested." That phrase sparked panic among those who understood what it meant. A nested signal implies layers within layers, meaning the 24 glyphs might have been only the surface of a far larger system, one that might now be active. Journalists tried contacting Lazar for clarification, but he had gone silent. His lab website went dark, replaced by a single sentence in gray text: "Some knowledge cannot be safely returned." The message vanished hours later, yet screenshots spread everywhere. It was enough to ignite another wave of theories. Some believed Lazar had been silenced. Others thought he had destroyed his own research after realizing what he'd found. Meanwhile, quiet reports began surfacing from Colombia again. Residents near the original impact site spoke of faint vibrations at night, a low pulse that came and went in regular intervals. Animals refused to go near the hillside. One local said his radio picked up bursts of static that aligned exactly with the 24/6 rhythm. Authorities dismissed it as atmospheric interference, but too many people recorded the same pattern for it to be coincidence. By then, even the skeptics had stopped laughing. The conversation had shifted from whether the sphere was real to what it wanted. A machine that could manipulate matter was one thing, but a machine that could think, adapt, and possibly communicate was something else entirely. And if Lazar's conclusion was right, that decoding the sphere had somehow awakened it, then humanity might have triggered a process it doesn't yet comprehend. The last remaining question lingered in every discussion, whispered like a warning. If the Buga sphere was waiting for someone to understand it, what happens now that someone finally has? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.